Talk about it with Franjez. Today we have two special guests. Returning guest, Todd Beiswenger, and returning guest co-host, Michael Muqattash. Thank you guys very much for, I'm not even gonna say being here. We're not even in my studio. We're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you guys are on my home turf this time.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. We are in the suburb Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania. I grew up a mile down the road. I grew up going to this church as a kid until I decided religion was boring and I didn't want to come to church anymore. But now I've made a full turn and I'm back here as a pastor. I'm in town, and I thought, well, let's have some fun and have a little podcast here.
The Bryn Athyn Cathedral.
Bryn Athyn Cathedral, yes, sir. This is 100 years old, so it's a very new Gothic cathedral, as you know these things go. But everything's here is hand built, carved. It's amazing. You do not make this place out of Home Depot. It's amazing.
It's beautiful, beautiful architecture, beautiful property. You said it's about 100 years old. Yeah. And what changed when you thought it was boring, and then when were you more excited about it?
Well, that's a great question. The religion is boring when you don't see the relevance to your life, right? If you're just sitting here hearing a pastor going rah, 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 and it doesn't relate to me, that's boring. But what happened for me is in my adult years, I was in my 30s, and I started learning more about what this church is based on. And I go, oh my gosh, I've been sitting here for all these years and I'm that dense and didn't realize that actually all of these teachings are essentially how to live life. Swedenborg is dropping the curtain saying, look, this is the theory of everything. This is how reality actually works. And if you believe this and do this, your life will be just way better. And I was like, oh, you know what? I started trying it out. And I was like, yeah, he's right. My life is better.
It makes sense, because when you were bored of the church as a kid, life is amazing. This is boring. Life is amazing. You're running around. Life is free. Life is worryless.
Yep.
Stressless.
Well, and you're right. And this is like Jesus says, bring the children to me. It's the children who inherit the kingdom of heaven. And the whole thing is returning to that state, right? We start in the Garden of Eden, right? Childlike state. But then we leave it because we're stupid, right? We can't follow instructions. There's one rule: don't do this. Of course, we do this. Right? That's how it goes, and we spend the next huge part of our life to get back. And if you know your Bible, the end story of the Bible is this city, New Jerusalem, and inside it is a garden. And so you start in a garden, you end in a garden, but this garden at the end is way fancy, and it's a showing that you've attained wisdom along the way, right? You've learned, right? And that's a big deal difference, because there's a huge gap between knowledge and wisdom, right? You have knowledge about how to set up a YouTube channel, but then when you actually try to do it, you go, oh, well, this equipment didn't work or that didn't work. And then you have wisdom, right? It's the putting that knowledge into practice, saying, oh, well, actually, this software is what works best for me, or that, whatever. And that's life, right? You have ideas as to what you think is going to work out well, but it's wisdom to actually do this stuff.
And it's to elevate the wisdom is the love, correct?
Yeah. If you go up that mountain, you have love in your heart, you gain wisdom through that. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you noticed with your kids, them being bored with the church and then them wanting more of it? Have they been through that yet?
My kids?
Yeah.
So yes and no. My son's done a pretty good job of being as ambiguous as possible with how he feels towards the church. Like, I sit there and I wonder, like, are you listening to me? And then later he'll say something and I go, oh, he got something. Yeah. But he's not a rah-rah guy. He's pretty, he's cool. The daughter, though, she's gone on a journey, and I see her coming more and more towards the church as she gets older, and again sees the relevance and goes, okay, yeah, this actually is true. So yeah, we're seeing some of that.
She's his favorite, that means.
Oh, there you go. That makes sense.
So funny you say that, because I do that with them. I go, oh, well, she's the favorite. He's the favorite. You're losing your spot. He's the favorite right now. Totally believing in dividing and conquering. Yes.
I just saw a post on Facebook, a memory of my late sister going on my mother's account saying Diana's my favorite daughter.
Nice.
And everybody got a good laugh out of it. But,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, for real.
And not for the siblings, but
to be able to look back and see something like that.
The memory is beautiful, yeah. It's crazy to be able to look at their page, see what they wrote, and you hear their voice as if they're saying it now. And that's like, wow, I got something I can not just read, but see, and sometimes hear and see.
Right.
Images is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Do you think this is a valid... This is just an idea of mine. I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like women are more prone to be religious and more open to that than men. How do you feel about the ratio?
I have a whole theory on this.
Let's do it.
All right. You want to hear my heresy? All right.
Let's do it.
And within these church walls. Okay, yin and yang. You're familiar with that, all right? And men and women are yin and yang. And so what is it that the woman on her side, well, I think she's actually yin or yang, whatever. What is it she seeks? Well, women, because they have a loving heart, right? Your wife's much nicer than you are, right?
Of course.
And so they seek wisdom. That's what they miss. It's not that they don't have any wisdom, but that's what they seek to make themselves whole. Men, well, we seek women. We seek love. We seek beauty, because love is beautiful. That's why women are so beautiful. And so why are women religious? Because religion teaches wisdom. It gives them what they want. Now, they're supposed to be getting that from their husband, but if their husband's a loser and doesn't seek wisdom, well, what do they have to do? They have to go find it somewhere. So they go to the church. But men, the problem is we think we're so smart. I got this all figured out. I don't need anything else. And so we don't seek the church because, well, I am wisdom. And there's a certain truth in the sense that men love being wise. How many men do you know that love to fix stuff? How many women do you know that love to fix stuff? Not so many, right? We play with our cars, our boats, and whatever. Chicks just don't do that because that's who we are. And so that to me is the difference as to why those differences happen, right? It's not just like you're a guy or a girl based on parts of your body. You're a man or a woman based on a spiritual underpinning, you are a male down to your soul level. And as a result, you seek love. Yeah? Huh?
Yeah, it makes sense. How they say men don't stop and ask for directions, women have no problem stopping and asking for directions?
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing.
Because we know it.
We know. Even if we don't know it, we know it.
Exactly. I'm so smart.
Can you summarize? I saw you did a short about that passage in I think it's a part of the Ten Commandments where the women are like cattle, and you were saying that it's not about.
I don't think I said women are like cattle.
No, but in the Bible it says that, but.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. It was a short about.
Don't put that on me.
About
I was sitting here.
How the man dominates the woman, and it's not really about the physical domination of a man and a woman. It's about the heart and the mind. Right. Can you summarize that short for us?
Right. I actually think it was one of my long videos, but anyway, it's a video I did on why is it that women are always the downfall of men in Scripture, and it's this idea that our loves can drive us astray, right? Cattle and stuff like that in Scripture, lambs, goats, cows, all that stuff. They symbolize a love that we have. Well, women are this highest love, a ruling love, and so when Eve, she corrupts Adam, right? She's the one who leads him astray. And it's not a picture that women lead men astray. I mean, though they have, right? I've been led astray by a woman. Yes, absolutely. We do dumb things in chasing a woman. But what this is really a picture of is showing how the things that we love will corrupt our thinking, right? If you like, you like a good beer, right? well, you're going to find a good way to justify why you can have that beer.
It's been a long week.
Right. I deserve this. You know what? And the problem is not when it's just a casual beer. The problem is when you become an alcoholic, right? And you still can justify it and tell yourself why you deserve it.
It's been a long day now. Now it's every day.
Yeah. My wife, my kids, my job, my whatever, my finances is all bad, and I can justify to drink away my problems. But we corrupt our thinking, and particularly when we love something. And you see this in culture all the time right now. We justify so many things that's like, we wouldn't have done that 50 years ago. But we go, oh, you know what? I can justify. I love the way this makes me feel. And society has lost that. Just because it feels good doesn't mean it is good. Like, here's a fundamental thing that I think people just have lost. It's fun to be evil, right?
So absolutely.
It's fun to talk smack to you. It's fun to get in a fight. It's fun being a jerk sometimes. Give you a piece of my mind. And we know that it's fun.
100%.
And yet we know it's bad.
100%. It's like eating bad. We know the bad meal is delicious. We love it.
Right.
We know it's bad for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yet when it comes to all those sorts of gratification, sexual gratification, we go, oh, well, it feels good, must be good. No, that's actually not true. Just because it feels good for me to sleep with another woman doesn't mean that it's good, because I'm married, I've committed, right? So there's all sorts of stuff in that realm where we are deceived by our senses, right? And this is the story of Adam and Eve. The serpent, God created the serpent. Is the serpent evil? No, God created the serpent. God doesn't create evil. We create evil. The serpent is a symbol for our five senses. It slithers on the ground. It's connected to the earth. So our senses are really good. Like when you drove from New York, you need your five senses to get here. You don't have a Tesla autopilot just yet. You need those things. So the five senses are inherently evil. But they can lead us astray.
That's deep.
Right? They can lead us astray. Because so many times the senses lie to us. I mean, you can go on like National Geographic. They have this great video series about how we get lied to and deceived by our senses. And we can scientifically prove it, that we're being lied to all the time by our five senses. And yet people say, oh, God doesn't exist. I can't see him. I can't touch him. I can't taste him. Well, wait a second. A lot of things your five senses can't do. You can't hear like a dog either, right? It doesn't mean those sounds aren't there. So, to me, I just love Adam and Eve because it just sets the whole picture for like what it is that we're struggling for, where we've gone wrong, and how reality really is. And it sets the picture for the whole narrative we have the rest of our life, trying to recover and get back to that place, that garden, that paradise. And what does it take? Not just knowledge, it takes wisdom to learn that pathway back. So, yeah, wow, I forget why we started on this little rant.
Me too. I'm glad we got there because that was beautiful. I love that.
The beginning, before you were saying that the man is to the soul is wisdom, and the woman to the soul is love.
I'm glad somebody was paying attention.
So putting them together.
Yeah.
When the Bible is saying the man should dominate the woman, it's because the wisdom, we're not chasing love, right?
Yeah.
What feels good.
Yes,
right?
Exactly that.
Okay.
Exactly. The man dominates because it's your rational thinking that has to run and be in charge over the loves. Because if it doesn't, love is blind. I mean, we know that. Like, it's a cliche. Love is blind. It's true. It's true. So, yeah, the man is in charge, not literally in a physical world, but it's like, no, the truth is supposed to be what leads you because your thinking is so corrupt and you don't even realize it. It just is.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for bringing us back.
Yeah, and then it's a perfect balance with the yin and yang, right? Where you have, once the love is on the same level as the truth, you love what's good and you love what's true. Now it's a perfect match, perfect union.
Well, and the interesting thing is, like, if you follow the Bible narrative, is you see that what happens over time is it switches. As you're starting on the path, starting on the journey, you have to acquire knowledge. And that knowledge has to become wisdom. And eventually, love does lead. because you've basically, reprogrammed yourself so that now you can lead from love because your love is no longer blind. You have the wisdom underpinning it. And through love, you learn wisdom. You learn even more.
The way you're using wisdom is the way you use truth,
Yeah.
I'm assuming, right?
Well, again, like wisdom's a higher version of truth. Truth is like knowledge, but wisdom is knowledge that's been used and like tested and refined. So like it's like oh, I should be nice to people. Excuse me, gonna have to edit that out. you know that you should be nice to people, but do you always know how to be nice to people? Like, people who have like a few kids get this, because like little Johnny, you have to motivate him different than little Susie. You have knowledge of like how parenting works in general, but you go, oh well, little Johnny, he's competitive. The only way I'm gonna get him to stop peeing his pants and using the toilet is by putting gold stars on a chart, and I'm gonna have to put gold stars on my chart as well, because I'm showing Johnny that Dad's better than him, and he won't stand for that, right? Little Susie though, she needs like a hug.
100%.
It's wisdom, right? It's wisdom from experience.
Nice. You referenced this area as the Mecca of the Swedenborg.
Yes.
Everything. The school, the place.
The Mecca, the Vatican, whatever you like.
If you could touch on briefly, why is this that place? Why Pennsylvania?
Yeah, well, it's a good question to ask God, actually, I think. Why did you do this here? But what I think happens over the course of history is Philadelphia, and I know you're New Yorkers, but Philadelphia is the home of independence, free thinking and whatnot. And so what ends up happening is you have some people who are interested in seeking the truth, right? You have religious institutions for hundreds of years telling you this, that, the other, and these guys are interested in seeking the truth. They find that with Swedenborg. The church started in Philadelphia, downtown proper. But they realized, like, if this is going to go anywhere, they really wanted a Swedenborgian, what they called a new church community. They wanted something where, we have our little Camelot. We have our own little space. And we don't let our thinking get corrupted by the outside world and their institutions. And so...
that makes perfect sense, the way you said it.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was all night long. I was like, oh, Mike and Fran are going to be here. Come on.
In front of the mirror.
You can do it. You can do it.
So if you could tell us about why you're in Pennsylvania all the way from Australia. Well, what brings you back home?
Yeah, exactly. I grew up around here, and I'm back in town because two things. There were clergy meetings, so clergy from all around the world were coming here to talk for a few days.
And a court order.
And a court extradition. Yeah, you couldn't help yourself. I understand. But there was also what's called an assembly, which I guess in normal terms people call that a conference. So it was just a big convention, whatever, here where we had a bunch of speakers talking about like new church physics, new church marriages, all these things based on Swedenborg teachings. How do we see these things differently than perhaps the rest of the world has? Because like what people don't get is that Swedenborg, he wrote just like 35 volumes of stuff that he published, plus like 15 more volumes or more of stuff he never published theologically, but scientifically. This guy was really stinking smart, and he has different perspectives on so much stuff that it's now 250 years after his death. We kind of look back and go, well, what did he have that science nowadays is picking up on? Right? Like I did an article for my church newsletter recently, and this is one that I just love, okay? Because this sounds like 14th century witch with like a big spoon over a cauldron, double, toil and trouble, It's like this is what you're expecting because what he says, Swedenborg's like, I'm having this spiritual experience, and God is letting me figure out like where emotions and stuff are coming from, and he doesn't say it this way, but what he comes down to, he's like, there's no such thing as a disembodied thought, all right, or a disembodied emotion. All this stuff is being put on you from outside sources. And what he's saying is like with every part of your body, your fingernails, your knees, your toes, whatever, there is some spiritual connection to the next realm, these higher realms, that we are like this organism that just receives all this input. And where this gets crazy is, like he says, depression, anxiety, those things can come from undigested, badly digested foods in your gut. Basically, like, essentially, your gut health can determine what has spiritual access to you. And what blew my mind is, like, about 10 years ago, I'm thumbing through the news, and they're saying, hey, science is realizing there's a huge link between your gut health and your mental health. I'm like, holy cow, this is what Swedenborg was talking about 250 years ago.
And this was, he didn't even do it scientifically. He didn't do this research scientifically.
No, this is all like being revealed to him on a spiritual experience. It's like he was on psychedelics without being on psychedelics, you know? And it's so, you see what he has, and he talks about different other concepts, you know, about, you know, creation of the universe and things like that. And you go, oh, wow, this guy, he has some amazing insights. And so now that we're starting, like, you know, he's got some credibility because, you know, he knew things about the brain 250 years ago that we didn't know until the past 50 years.
Wow.
You know, he gets that, like, creation. You know, we talk about the Big Bang, you know, and, something from nothing. Well, of course that can't happen. You can't have something from nothing. But what he does is he says, well, everything has a cause. And so you just start rolling it back. Well, it's like a chain of marbles, right? Well, this marble was moved by this one. Okay, well, what moved that one? Well, something moved that marble. So, it was this marble. Okay, well, you know, you keep on going back. You know, something was the prime mover, right? Something started it, and you know, he's like, you have to trace it. It all goes back to God. You know, whatever you want to call him, you know, Jehovah, you know, Allah, whatever. There is this entity at the beginning that starts everything.
I wanted to ask you. There's guys like Bill Carson, the African-American guy that he's talking about ancient civilizations and how the Jesus story was ripped off because it's very similar. I read somewhere, or maybe saw on Afterlife podcast that it's similar because it's prophesized, the story, and Jesus Christ fulfills it. Is that accurate to what Swedenborg teaches?
Yeah. You know, Jesus was not just a really good dude, you know. It's like he is God making himself finite, right? You know, the infinite has no beginning, no end, and Jesus comes because God has to approach us on this level, right? Have you seen this? Maybe I don't know how well read in the Bible you are. There's stories in the Bible where they say, well, look, if you see the face of God, you're going to die. All right, you know, Moses is like, I want to see you, and God's like, it's not going to work out well for you.
There's no take backs.
Exactly. It's like, I love you and all, but you know,
I can tell you, but then I have to kill you.
And so, you know, well, why is Jesus born? Because God doesn't want to kill us. If God wants to show up in our life at that point in history, people were so bad and so not interested in that kind of God. They needed the God right here. And so he's like, all right, I will be born. I will show up myself and fix this place. But he had to do it in a way that he doesn't obliterate us. So he has to be born in this human form. And, you know, a lot of miracles were done by Jesus that had been done by other prophets, right? This Bible's full of miracles. But other prophets didn't die and raise themselves up from the dead. And so do I believe other civilizations had prophets and guys who could do miracles and, you know, understood like the connection between the spiritual and the natural realm? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But what Jesus did was beyond what anything else. Yeah, we'll just edit you out. Thanks.
God,
And that was a reasonable stopping point anyway.
yeah, that was. I like the pressure from them. It forced us to jump in precisely and really like hammer in some points.
Yeah.
Topics, right?
Yeah.
I always did better like that in school too. Like when it comes like once the exam's there, all right, now I can study and really get an A. Before I'm like, yo,
Without deadlines, we're worthless.
yeah.
That's a perfect segue. School, it's on my list to ask. The 120 credits, I would love to dive into that.
Oh my gosh. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Just briefly
No,
touch on that.
like, so we were talking earlier about, so I have an MBA, and I was saying how I wanted to do a job while I got my Master's of Divinity to be a priest in this organization. And it was like 120 credits, and it was absolutely, I thought it was going to be easy to get a master's, but it was not. It was more like a PhD level, and but it's because Swedenborg writes so much. He's 35 volumes, like I said, of published theological material. They're 500 pages. Some of these books a piece, some are not, but there's a lot of stuff there to cover. And being a pastor isn't just about knowledge, right? It's not just about learning the theology. It's like they actually had to teach me how to be nice. I wasn't something that came naturally to me. They had to say, look, Todd, this is how you're going to have to be nice to people. Stop pushing little old ladies down the stairs, all right? Just don't do that anymore. And that took a lot of training.
How many years was that?
It was a full-time 3-year program.
Wow,
So
that's a lot for a master's degree.
Yeah, it was. But they're teaching you, a little bit about how to run an organization, a little bit about community activities. So it's a really broad job, and I'm grateful that I had that much education, and yet, oh my gosh, it was a lot of work. You see the lack of hair and the gray. I know what happened, right? It's theological school. That's what it was.
So you had to do like practice sermons or something, or homilies? I don't.
Yeah,
they call them homilies here.
No, we're sermons. We do sermons.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. First one I did, it was so bad. I was boring myself. I'm reading this and I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't even want to finish this. This is boring, and I learned I had to do better.
I watch you on YouTube from Australia, and then you're good at it. I don't know if it's because of the sales background, but what made you find your comfort zone in doing the homilies?
Well, look, that's a long story actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, but look, in high school, I had this great idea that the way to win chicks over was by being funny.
There you go.
And so I really did study a lot of stand-up comedy. I watched these guys, but I also ended up into sales jobs. So I learned how to communicate and see what it is that the other person wanted and how to deliver that efficiently. And so between the basic sales communication skills and a desire to have some comedy, which I still enjoy, right? It's fun. That's just kind of what happened. I'm a mashup of competing purposes: women and money.
Oh man,
That's perfect.
that is perfect. I like that. Oh man, now we can dive even deeper in our next segment when we move. We talk about.
Shall we?
I want to talk about Buddhism. They have this belief where we're reincarnated to come back and do better than we did in our past life.
Yeah.
Every time we reincarnate, we're to do better and keep getting higher and better.
Right.
Does that correlate any which way to the spirituality in Swedenborg?
No.
Where it's like the soul comes back to.
No. Like we don't do a reincarnation in that kind of Buddhist sense, but it's the idea that nobody ever dies, and what can happen is if I pass away, but I'm still just so mentally attached to this world, this realm, I may kind of stay and attach myself to you. Let's say, like I have a friend who swears he's been reincarnated and that he was actually a Nazi fighter pilot in the Second World War, and he is spending his life in this now atoning for the bad that he did in the previous life. He 100% buys it. I think what happened is that pilot died, which this my friend remembers. He dies in a crash, and that spirit of that pilot has just anchored itself to this world and to this friend of mine who was born about the same time this guy, the pilot, dies. And so what he thinks are his memories are not his. He's not reincarnated, but it's this spirit who's still trying to make amends. So it's not reincarnation, but he's still trying to help make things better. All right. We can go next door.
We'll be back. We were kicked out of the cathedral.
We were.
Technically, we were. It's Sunday. They had their mass. Did you call it mass?
Nah, just church. Had a church service.
They had church service. And then it was over, and we were still potting. So they said, please leave. We're setting the alarm. So now we're across the street. What would you call this property?
This is called the Brickman Center. It's part of Bryn Athyn College. This is like their, one of their buildings on campus.
Nice. You went to school here, right?
I did. I had 2 tours of duty here.
Tours of duty?
Yes.
Sounds like military.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, they made me work really hard. This school, it's small, and you think, oh, this is a pushover. No, this is hard. I graduated high school, did 2 years here, got an associate's degree. Then I went to Auburn University, Alabama, got a marketing degree. And then, 10 years later, I came back and got my master's of divinity. So, I have done 2 tours.
A lot of school.
Crazy.
In Alabama.
But,
nice.
Yeah. But before we got kicked out, you brought up an interesting conversation on reincarnation and stuff.
Let me introduce that one, because the way I asked it, I liked it. And it was smooth and straight to the point. So before the camera went off, I asked about Buddhism, reincarnation, and then I started talking about Buddhism, reincarnation, and heaven and hell.
Which is Swedenborg's book, Heaven and Hell, you're talking to.
Yeah. So Buddhists believe that you can come back to reincarnation and do better than your last life. And then I started thinking about Swedenborg, where there's different levels of heavens. So if the Buddhists are correct, when you come back, you have a chance of working through a better life to go back to your spiritual realm, to a higher church. I mean, not higher church, higher heaven.
Yeah.
So that's what it was.
Right. And I get that.
Yeah.
And this is our off-camera conversation, but what I was saying is it's so appealing, that idea, because of the mercy built in it. Because we all make mistakes, we do stupid things. At the end of our life, we think, boy, kind of stuffed it up. Wouldn't mind another crack at this. And so we think reincarnation is a very merciful way of seeing things, and I get it. But one of the things that I've picked up with reading Swedenborg is that, God is merciful, and yet reincarnation isn't how he achieves the mercy. And so he takes kind of a middle ground, because a lot of Christians have this idea, I've died, I walk up the pearly gate, St. Peter's there, and he says, oh, gee, Mike, I don't think so, buddy. Pulls the trap door, and down he goes, and that's it. Or conversely, when I get there, it'd be, hey, Todd, here's the Diamond Resort. Here you are. You were a pastor. Well done. Off you go. And the reality is, Swedenborg's neither of those scenarios are real. And that what ends up happening is you go through another process where you start to learn who you really are. And there's still chances to kind of amend. But at the end of this process, there's no doubt in your mind where you belong. I think I said in the last time we talked that, the blessing of heaven is the same as the curse of hell. Either way, you end up with people just like you. And so this process is a way of bringing out and showing yourself who you were. This is, because we justify and make excuses for how we behaved. Oh, no, I'm not really a jerk. I just, did this stuff, right? I got problems.
It was because of that.
Yeah.
They made me. That made me.
Exactly. And denying the fact that you enjoyed being a jerk, right? And so Swedenborg's like, no, you still have this chance to see who you were and make changes and get over it.
In the afterlife.
In the afterlife. And then it's after you've gone through that, then heaven or hell becomes a reality for you. But still in neither case, it's not God does this to you, you do this to you. And so when you think about it in terms of the Buddhist perspective, like, yeah, that mercy is still built in. That mercy is still built in. It's just Swedenborg does not portray it in a kind of a physical reincarnation, because what he's telling us is that as you're going through this process, you are spiritually kind of attached to other beings. Like, there are guardian angels. We talk about them. Guardian angels are with you, and there are also evil entities that are with you. Well, they're on a different plane of existence, but like dimensionally they're attached to you, and they're going through their processes, right? So as you're going through yours, they're going through theirs. It's like this whole fractalized universe where layers upon layers are happening. And so what can happen, like you'll hear stories online where a little kid says, hey, I have these memories of like being an Egyptian, worker, and it all kind of can be true. There's a famous story about this, about a woman who says she was an Egyptian princess, and she knew all this amazing archaeological stuff that she shouldn't have known. Well, some people say, well, that's proof of reincarnation. Well, from Swedenborg's point of view, he's like, no, that's just proof that the spiritual world and other entities are connected to us, and that little girl was able to get through the veil of the spiritual realm and connect to the memories of that Egyptian princess.
What do you think about that, Mike?
I never believed in reincarnation. I was interested in it, watching a lot of the Hans Williams videos, and but ultimately I would have the Swedenborgian perspective.
You believe where it's like the spirits, the souls can latch onto a physical being? That's why they have these memories from a past life?
I mean, yeah, I think it would be like latching on to the energy that I'm giving out, and not the being. Not like, hey, that's Mike, let me follow him, because he's Arabian and I used to live in ancient Arabia or something. But more of like the passions, I would say.
No, absolutely agree. That's exactly it. It's like attracts like, and what attracts us to each other, even in this world, is commonality of love. We all love a good Philly cheesesteak. That's what we're going to go to next. And so we hang out, right? Yeah.
Review coming up, Philly style.
Right. Or if you're, you said you're Giants fan, so, you hang out with Giants fans. And it's the same thing in the spiritual realm, just on a higher degree. The loves that you're attracting on are deeper loves, right? For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting stuff. Very interesting.
Look, Swedenborg really makes you rethink reality. And that's what I love about it so much, is that this is why I think so few people really grab on, because everything becomes new. Everything you thought becomes wrong. It's like when you see it from this perspective that this world does not have its own innate reality, right? This world is a world of effects. This world is an echo from these higher spiritual realms. Then, I think we said earlier about the Big Bang. Well, the Big Bang isn't just its own little miracle. It's a manifestation of what's going on in the spiritual realm. And you just kind of go, whoa, and it's the closest I've ever seen to a theory of everything. And that's what's so appealing, because Swedenborg doesn't just say there's a spiritual world, but he talks about it, from how religions exist and why all the different ones exist. And, it's just, it blows your mind. I mean, I wouldn't mind being wrong on reincarnation. But if I think about my teenage years and dealing with girls and finding a wife, and that was no fun at all. I have no desire to go through that again. Puberty was not the most great process in my life, so I think reincarnation would not be my chosen way to do things.
I see your point. But it's like, imagine the spiritual world is infinite. It's forever. Mm. This is just a blip, this physical experience we're having. Few years or nothing.
Yep.
So if you're in the spiritual world and you know what it's like to go through a physical experience, I think you would. Imagine 1,000 years go by in the spiritual world. Let's say that's how it works. And you're like, I could do another 70, 80, 90 years on Earth. Let's do it.
Yeah, look, I get that. Did we talk about Robert Monroe last time?
No.
All right, so Monroe is super interesting. He's a guy, he probably passed away 30 years ago, and he's an American known for astral travel. All right, so he wrote the initial book on astral traveling, out-of-body experiences. And he could just do it, right? It wasn't like, I've had an out-of-body experience where I went to sleep one night, I had the experience, it came back, I didn't start it, I didn't stop it, it just happened. But Monroe could manifest these things.
Is it astral projection?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Journeys Out of the Body, I think, was the first book you wrote. And, what he talks about in his stuff is that the Earth life experience, he calls it, he says, is really addictive. He says, because it's such a raw, powerful experience, it's very addictive.
Feel it physically.
Yeah. And he says, you just don't get that kind of power in the spiritual realms. And so he makes a case that reincarnation is real. And he says, though, that it's not kind of in a Buddhist sense, but it's just that it happens because we love it so much. It's almost like it's a holiday. You're on this cruise ship and, oh, hey, let's go into port. Oh, let's go to Earth for a couple, for them, it's like 2 weeks. For us,
exactly.
For life, they experience a life of 100 years or whatever. And but he just talks about being a very raw experience, and I get that, I do, and I like Monroe a lot, and yet I still wonder if what he's talking about is technically accurate. Is it what Swedenborg is saying, where the spirit feels like it's here because the mind is so focused and so attracted to the loves and the uses and whatnot, that it just, that's where it's at. There's another book called Return from Tomorrow, written by George Ritchie. This is a great near-death experience story. Highly, highly recommend this book. It's 100 pages. You could read it on your way home kind of thing. But he talks about where he dies. He's probably in his 20s, and he's got the flu or whatever. He dies. He goes out of his body, and he's like, God basically grabs him by the hand and gives me a tour. And he takes Richie to a bar. And at this bar, he sees all these basically disembodied spirits that are trying to get the drink. Disembodied spirits who are trying to screw the girl. All these things that they're so addicted to the experience. One was a businessman who's still trying to run his company, but he's talking to the people he's left behind, saying, Joe, you got to do this. Joe, you got to do this. Joe, you got to do this. But they're not listening to him. And what Richie's saying is the problem that these spirits have is that they haven't really realized they're dead, and so they're trying to make their life keep going. They haven't looked up and ascended. So
they're still young on the phone to their secretary.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, and there's just and what I love about Richie's thing is Monroe ties into it so well, because Monroe's talking about this guy, and Monroe is very much warning us about sexual overdrive, and he's like, if you get into if sex is your number one thing, you will end up in a realm where you've lost your humanity. He describes it as this thing called the pile, where these just writhing corpses just, doing all the sexual gyrations and for eternity until they kind of wake up from their stupor.
If they ever.
Yeah, exactly. And he sees this one guy who's died. All right, so Monroe is like a ghost, and he's in this world, but can go through walls and all that kind of stuff, and he's out of body. And he sees this other guy who has also just died, and he's trying to help this guy get out of this orbit. Right? He's like, I want you to go into these higher realms. Let me help you get you out of here. And bird.
Sounds like it's in here.
It might be.
Or in the ceiling somewhere.
Yeah, but
trying to get out of this realm.
My man.
Well done. But so Monroe sees this guy, and he gets like this. He talks about getting a signal, right? He gets a signal. So he goes to meets this guy, and the spirit he's meeting is a dude who is just jumping into this bed. There's this woman who he's always wanted to be with. He wants to bang her, and so she's screwing a guy in real life, right? And so he's trying to get in on the action, but he sees the spirit jump into the bed and go through the bed and through the floor. And he comes back up, and he's talking like it's very explicit how he's guy's got a big heart on, all this stuff. And Monroe's like, dude, come here. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. There are other pleasures in this realm. You have passed away. Can you tell me what happened before you got here? And he starts working the guy through it and saying, and he's like, oh yeah, you know what? You're right. I fell downstairs. Like I had a heart attack and collapsed and falls down the stairs. And
Viagra.
But he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I collapsed, and then I had this huge surge of energy. Like, yeah, I have life again. And so what does he want to do? His number one love is to get laid. So he goes to the chick that he's been wanting to do forever, I guess, and goes there. And Monroe's like, all right, let me guide you out. And as he's guiding them, ascending to a higher plane, the guy just disappears. And he then spots him in that pile. He's like, I can see him. He's just into that mass of writhing bodies. And he's like, oh, this is why we have to control our sexual desires, because anything that we think in the spiritual realm, it happens. It happens. And we lose our humanity in that way. We also become very human in that way, right? The things we love really can manifest when they're good. But he's big on that, and so you can see that between these guys that there's more to the spiritual world than just you die, you go to heaven, you go to hell, right? There are these layers of existence, and the goal is to make it to heaven. And I guess, on a practical level, I personally, I don't care if there's reincarnation in a physical way or if Swedenborg's version of it is right. Neither of that really matters, because what all of these things point to is you got to do better. Mm-hmm. You got to do better, or else you're never going to get out of this orbit. And I think the push on the Swedenborg side is that you got to try harder sooner. There's a bit more urgency to Swedenborg in the sense that you're going to get a really good crack at it to make, if you don't choose well, it's your own fault, right? Everything's been done. God's every mercy has been given to you, every chance, every opportunity. So it's still going to be your fault, but like the kind of Buddhist style it makes us feel better because we feel like, oh, well, there's like 1,000. If it takes me 2,000 years to do it, I'll get there eventually.
I'll enjoy every step of the way.
Yeah, right. But that's what we try to do. Like we're stuck in this thing where we want to enjoy all the base pleasures and lusts of the flesh. We want to be a jerk and still go to heaven, right? That's really what we want. I want to have 17 girls to sleep with and have a perfect marriage. And
I want to eat cheeseburgers all day, every day, and have a six-pack.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's just not how it works. There are, things and consequences, right? Whatever it is. And so I think, no matter which spirituality you really, engage with, you still have to work at being a better person. And that's the bottom line. Whether you do that now or later, I still think there's an impetus to start the process sooner. The sooner you start it, the easier it makes the subsequent lives or subsequent, post-death experience, because you don't want to go through that guy who's jumping into the bed with the girl who's not really there and into you, and you end up transporting yourself to a realm where that's all people do. Like, that's just misery.
100%.
Those people aren't happy.
I heard of a near-death experience recently where this guy said he was, as soon as he got there, he was approached by two beings. They weren't in like human form, but it was just a being. And he said that he felt like they were his best friends, and they were talking to him like he was their best friend. Hey, welcome back. How was it? It's been so... And they were really asking him, what did you do? How was it? And they really wanted him to go through his whole life. Oh, I was living here. I ended up getting married, having a couple of kids. I had this job, and then I had a house, and that's all they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear about the physical experience, and he said that's what it was all about, just them catching up.
Yeah, like he was on a holiday.
Yeah. How was it? Tell me about it.
Yeah. And I get that. I mean, it's, in a spiritual realm, like, things don't happen the way they do here. We have this linear sequence of life, and if you've seen what's a movie we all seen, like
Goodfellas.
All right, so you know how that's going to end, right? But you can start the movie at the beginning and enjoy the whole process.
Absolutely.
Even though you know what's going to happen at the end. And in this world, you don't have that. You don't know how your life's going to end. I don't, none of us do. And yet from the spiritual realm, I think people do. I think from that higher perspective, they can kind of look down and say, oh yeah, well, I see where Fran's going. I see where Mike's going. I see where Todd's going. And so there's less suspense. Right? There's just something missing in that experience of the spiritual realm because you're in that higher perspective. And so we come here, and it's like we're being put on a freaking roller coaster. Strap me in. All right, here we go. Wah! Oh my gosh, I lost my job. Wah! How am I going to feed this meat sack? Oh, whoa! It's just absolutely bonkers to the spiritual being who's like, oh yeah, God's got it all. It's fine. Oh, I want food. I manifest it. I want a house. I got it. I don't money. It's just such a chill realm, right? We have things to do, and a lot of it can be, I think, managing us, helping us on our path. There are spirits and angels that do that, but like, I just think that, yeah, we pop into this life, and it's like, strap me in, here we go, pull the lever.
How am I going to be born? We don't even know.
This is good. And then I can imagine, like, your near-death experience guy, he wakes up and he sees his buddy. He's like, oh, wow. That was amazing. Can I go again?
No, first tell us what happened. Tell us about it.
Right.
You said you had an out-of-body experience?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was during your sleep, you said, right?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, this is...
It wasn't a dream, then?
Yeah, you wouldn't classify that as a dream?
No, because I could see myself. What do you
mean, see yourself sleeping?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is, gosh...
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Look, it was so weird. So this is like 20 years ago. My mom's passed away, and... traumatic event, right? I missed my mom. I actually loved my mother, and we got along really well. And there was grieving, as you might imagine, and there were some experiences that I had where, like, some would happen in a dream that I felt like I was being shown information, like in Bible stories, but others, like this one, where at first I thought it was a dream. In that I am sitting with my mom, it's almost, like this, and there's two chairs, we're facing each other, and we're just catching up. My wife had just had our son at that time. I'm like, we just had a boy and all this stuff, and my job stuff was all in flux. It's small talk, right? She's not giving me the secrets of the universe or the lottery tickets. Thanks, Mom. Lottery numbers. Mom. Come on. You're supposed to do that. She didn't do any of that. We're just being normal, and what I remember so clearly is, as we're talking, I said to her, I'm gonna have to go. He's waking up, and I looked down and I can see myself lying in my bed, starting to rustle a little bit, and then as I see myself turn over, and it's like I've seen near-death experience people describe this like being sucked back like a genie back into his bottle, and it's just like, whoo, and I'm like, I just remember going, bye, see ya. And until next time, and it's just like, whoa! And I wake up like, whoa, what happened there? Out of body, but I can just so clearly see myself. Yeah, he's waking up, and I can see myself turning in the bed next to my wife, and it's just like, whoa, this is crazy.
Let me ask you, there's now I've never done it, but there's people that what's it called, the toad.
Yeah.
Or, like the psychedelic stuff.
Yep.
And they say they see entities. And then they come back and say, I didn't see Jesus. I didn't see the devil. I didn't see any religious figure.
Not even humans. Humans.
Yeah, so therefore your religion is BS. Right? Like, didn't see the Prophet Muhammad, didn't see Buddha.
Yeah.
What are they seeing? Not that I care about what they're seeing, but I'm saying, like, what do you think they're seeing? And why won't they see anything religious? Is it because maybe they're not religious?
Let me try to answer that just on my uneducated mind.
Please.
I feel like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, everybody, they're not religious. They weren't here teaching religion, right? They say that they were teaching love, right? That's what they were moving through, love all day, every day. That's why they really stood out. That's why they were so impactful to people. So it's not like Jesus is a Christian. Jesus is a religious person or a religious figure. He's a spiritual figure that moved through a human form through love. Mm-hmm. That's what I have to say. That's why during psychedelic experiences and near-death experiences, people don't see a Jesus or a Buddha. That's why, because they're not correlated with anything with afterlife. They're just a spirit that lived through a physical world, that lived through love, and that's why they're so impactful for the human race.
All right, well, I'll challenge you just on in near-death experiences, lots of people see Jesus.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's super common.
Even Muslims, they report, even though they have a belief in Isa, who's not Jesus per se, but
to what Mike's saying, like, on psychedelics, you don't have those beings show up. But what you do have, particularly with the toad venom, it's 5-MeO-DMT is the chemical.
Bufo alvarius.
Yeah. It's known as, maybe you know this, the God particle.
Molecule?
Yeah. And it's what I realized in researching it, like, I've never done that, but it's not that you're God when you take it. It's you have God's perspective. And so what I find interesting about it is, you take some of these things and you're just getting a certain perspective and not necessarily all of the information of the universe. So, they go, all right, well, I didn't see Jesus, but I know God exists, right? There was a study. Excuse me. There was a guy who wrote a book. I wish I could remember what it was. I think it was called DMT, the God Molecule, or something like that. And he was a guy out in New Mexico, researcher, and there's a guy who does research, and he's experimenting with different levels of DMT, giving people different levels and seeing what happens. And what he found is that there's a certain dosage that, like, if you get beyond this,
you'll see Jesus.
Yeah, like he's like, at a certain point, you can no longer deny God's existence. You can be an atheist up to a certain level of DMT, but at a certain point, nah.
I've met atheists or confused on religion people.
Talk about it. You could name me, bro. I'm right here. I was one of those people.
Yeah, you're one of them.
My whole life, I was just, it didn't seem believable to me, so I never even dove in, like religion. I grew up Catholic, but, it just didn't seem, and then psychedelics opened my mind to it, and I did Bufo alvarius. That was really the moment I understood spirituality, at least spirituality. That's when I started realizing there's definitely more than just this physical being.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you off. What were you saying? I just want to say, you could say it was me because I was one of those people.
Oh yeah, well you're one of them for sure. But yeah, now I was gonna say that. Well, he said that, that they'll believe in a spiritual realm, but they won't subscribe to a specific faith, which is fine. Like you said, at the end of the day, it's all about being remade, reborn, or
right.
And changing. With a total mind, total new heart, and
Yep.
I would advertise the Christian way, but just at least I think that's a good first step for some people.
Yeah.
Right. Because without that experience, you maybe think what, like you die and that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was just, that's it. Blackness, darkness.
Which could lead to the way, obviously, it's going to lead to the way you live your life, decisions
100%.
you make, and etc.
Sure.
Yeah, no repercussions. I don't have anything to deal with afterwards.
Yeah, and live it up while you
Live it
can.
up.
Yeah.
By the way, Jesus was practicing Jew.
Yeah, he was a born Jew. Yeah, he was Jewish.
Yeah, but he was practicing Jewish religion, correct?
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
some of what you said before about not preaching a religion or a way of life and just love, I don't know if that's totally accurate.
Of course not totally.
For all of the people, but the gist of it, the love with the truth that's going to change the way you live and who you are, essentially, in order to rise up.
Mm.
Yeah, they say he even practiced a little Buddhism too, right?
I don't know, a lot of
Supposedly,
people
there's
say a lot of things.
Many stories, but
I saw people that said that Christ was in India and Christ was in Egypt. Well, he was in Egypt as a baby, right? But
well, and the whole Mormon religion is founded on Christ being here.
yeah,
Seriously.
yeah, in the U.S.,
in America.
Right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'd rather not know about the Mormon religion. But
I'm pretty sure that's right. That I think the basic idea is after the crucifixion, resurrection, that he came here for a while.
yeah, he was in the Bronx for a little while.
But he wasn't a Yankees fan, I'll tell you what.
How do you think they won 29 chips?
Oh man.
Derek
Jesus.
Jeter used to chill with him.
Well played. Well played. I accept that.
I got to ask you, Rev, about the book Other Planets, and I'm
Please
so
ask me
with
about
all the
that.
alien stuff going on. Dr. Mike Margie, who was on the podcast last time with Curtis Childs with us, and he was telling me about, Dr. Mike was telling me about a lot of similarities to what Swedenborg was saying about other planets, that researchers now of UFO studies and alien studies were saying is the same as this philosopher, scientific genius from 200 years ago.
I gotta read that one. I didn't know about that one.
I read most of it. What is it? The excerpt, right? Of Secrets of Heaven, probably, right? So this book is like this big. This one you can definitely read on a bus ride somewhere. But tell us about that if you can.
My gosh, you guys love to take me off the deep end. I love it. I love it. Because at my core, I'm weird, and I know that. And
Reverend Todd Uncensored.
This is the stuff I don't put on my channel because everybody think, whoa, this guy's crazy.
Let's do it here. Let's do it.
All right. So a little bit of context. You're right. So Swedenborg writes this series called Secrets of Heaven. It's 12 volumes. They're about 400 pages apiece. And interspersed throughout it, he has these comments about life on other planets. And later in his life, he decides to take all those excerpts and make a book out of it called Earths in the Universe, or something like that. And look, it's within Swedenborg circles, it's super controversial because we take Swedenborg at his word for so much of what he says about Scripture and heaven and hell and afterlife, stuff like that. And then there's this crazy little thing where he says, hey, there's people on the moon. And there's people on Mercury, Venus, Earth, like there's people everywhere. And, back in the 60s, before all of us were born, there's the space race. And there were new church pastors who were like, all right, this is good. The astronauts are going to land on the moon, There's going to be people there, and we're going to be able to say, ha, told you so, Swedenborg was right, suck on that, guys. This is the true church. And, of course, they didn't report any people on the moon. So, now what do we do with this thing? Now we're the ones with egg on our face. How do we make sense of this? And so it's been a thing for what do we do? And so I'll start with the less crazy explanations and get progressively more crazy as I go. Are we good with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So the standard way Swedenborg readers explain this is saying, well, technically what happened is what Swedenborg did is he experienced spirits who were from the moon, not people on the moon, but just entities that were, say, attached to the moon or Mars or whatever. And so he wasn't saying that there actually are people there, but just that there's spiritual life that exists there. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Another attempt is saying, well, there used to be life on those planets, but there isn't anymore. The universe is 14 billion years old. Maybe there's life before. Isn't there now? Okay. Some say Mars used to have an atmosphere to it, so you could squint your eyes and say, well, maybe there used to be a time when there was life. Okay. All right, so those are this is what normal Swedenborg followers believe, all right? Something along those lines. I am not that. I am different. I have my own little theory about it, and it goes back to what Monroe was experiencing. Because, all right, I love this so much. Monroe goes outside his body, and he starts going around the world, right? And he's doing all these tests to say, I saw my Uncle Joe doing this, that, the other, to prove that he wasn't crazy. At first, Monroe thinks he's absolutely losing his mind. But he goes spies on people and gets confirmation that these things are happening. So he's like, oh, no, what I'm seeing is real. So, well, what do you do after you've gone to all the strip clubs and stuff like that in ethereal form? Explore the universe. And he goes from planet to planet, all over the universe, and he finds no trace of any life anywhere at all. And he's like, well, kind of WTF? How can this be? Are we really the only life in this universe? And through a series of years of doing this, he finally learns to set an intention. So before he goes into his trance state to hop out of his body, he basically says, okay, I am asking to have any life of higher consciousness than mine to come and help me on my journey. I forget the exact phrase, but something like he's asking for higher consciousness to come to him. And he says once he learns to do that before he hops out of body, he finds life everywhere. Every planet, every rock, absolutely just the universe teeming with life.
Life, but not human life, right? Where everything's alive, but not necessarily human life?
Well, it's not like saying your chair is alive. It's actually beings. They are live beings. But what he's talking about is that they live at a higher frequency. They're on a higher plane of existence. We talk about, angels or ghosts. Ghosts is probably a better example of it, where it's at a higher frequency. You can't see it, but it's there. And so I kind of think, well, maybe Monroe's right in that there is life in the universe. Swedenborg's right. There's life on the moon, but it just lives at a higher frequency than what we know of. If God is this infinite being, surely he can make life in other than just carbon-based life forms. He's got more than one trick up his sleeve, just to me, to think that this is the only way God can create life seems a bit arrogant. And so maybe that's how Swedenborg's Earth in the Universe is true. There is life on other planets, but a lot of it is stuff that we can't necessarily see. And as I promised, I'd get weirder as we go.
Let's do it.
One more level of weird. Maybe, and I've come to quite like this theory, even though I'm not sure I believe it. Maybe the fact of the matter is the governments are just lying to us, and there is life on other planets, and they've just, doing a con job on us because there's something that they don't want us to know. And, I used to have no time for that theory, but the older I've gotten and the more I've read and researched, I'm going, oh, maybe. Do you know who Ingo Swann is?
No.
All right, Ingo Swann is a remote viewer. He used to work for the CIA. He had a psychic ability to go to other places and report back. And so Swann was trained to do kind of what Monroe did, but just he did it for the government. And one of the stories Swann tells is that he went to the dark side of the moon, and there are alien bases there. They have a mining colony, and they come to Earth to get water because they need that to do their mining project on the moon. Like I said, we're going to get weirder the more I talk. But
I have heard of the dark side of the moon. I've heard of this.
But but Swann is so particular as to exactly what's going on there and why we're seeing the UFOs here. It's just need supplies. We're a supply
Water,
station.
though, that's
I know.
possible, but it's just weird.
Yes. No argument there.
Promised you would.
I did. I'm delivering. All right, Mike.
To
I'm
leave
delivering.
Earth with some water, that's...
I know.
The people what they want.
But
Well, then maybe they evaporate that shit.
They have
Bring
no
it back
water
up.
over there?
Wow.
They must have no water up
I
there.
guess. But then there's like last one, and then you can. It's just that if you look on the research about the Mars photos and how much NASA photoshops and alters photos before it releases to the public, I go, I'm a little skeptical anyway. But like when you start doctoring photos, I was like, well, why? What are you hiding?
The live feed that they started delaying showed something. I was watching a documentary also, Dr. Mike was showing me, and it's ridiculous that they were showing you a live feed, right? And then you see something zip by and then come back. And then after that, they stopped showing the live feed. They started delaying it a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And the overwhelming evidence of things in Antarctica and wasn't what's his name? John Kerry was just there, and then they said nobody's allowed to go back there. And
Oh, I didn't hear that.
yeah, and I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there's way too much things going on.
You're not a conspiracy guy, but you're not stupid either.
Yeah, it's way too much stuff going on for it not to be something, and then hearing explanations like from Swedenborg and,
Yeah, I'm like so. Look, here's what it's come down to for me with Swedenborg is that I've learned that to go against him is something I do at my own peril. That usually it comes good, and that I know it sounds crazy about life on other planets in one sense, and yet I've had so much experience with it. What he says comes true. What he says is right. What he says makes sense. I just go, it's like I hate to say it, betting against the Yankees, right? It's like the Yankees, they do well. If you're gonna pick someone to win the World Series, odds are you pick the Yankees, right? Even though they haven't done that in a while. But as Swedenborg, he's just like one of the things that Jesus says is there'll be lots of false prophets out there, but judge prophets by the fruit that they bear. Look at what they're delivering, and then you can figure out whether this is from me or not. And I look at what Swedenborg offers, and I go, man, this guy is promoting, truth, love, and equality, all this stuff that we think on these higher levels. And it's like, yeah, this has got to be from God, because Swedenborg wasn't getting famous for this. He had to go to trial for heresy. I mean, this legitimately, his life was in danger. He published anonymously, and he grew up in Sweden, and he had to go to England because there was no freedom of the press in Sweden. So he's got to go stuff out of country anonymously because he didn't want fame. He
was already famous though, right?
Yeah,
for science and they already had money,
right?
So it's not like he was doing it to get money and for fame.
Right.
So he's from Sweden, and his name is Swedenborg, or is it because he's from Sweden that there's a created name?
I think it is because I think the actual name was Svedberg.
Oh, okay.
And then when his father, who was like a higher up in the Lutheran church, was wasn't knighted, but given a level up in nobility, they took on the name Swedenborg.
Wow.
England, bro. They change everybody to their liking, right?
Lord.
But even though he tried to be anonymous for so long, he had some notoriety for he hid what he did, and there are these stories where there's one where he's out of town, and I think he was in England, and there's a fire in his neighborhood.
Yeah, I heard about that one.
And the neighborhood's burning down, and he's aware of it. He's talking to his friends at this party in London or whatever, hours and hours away by a couple hours flight from where he is. And this is 1700s. You can't know things. There's no Twitter, you can't know things instantly. And he's telling people, oh yeah, there's this fire that's going to burn down my house. And then it's like, oh no, they stopped it. It's good. I'm good. And I'm like, oh. And everybody's like, okay. And then they find out, in the newspapers, days later that, oh yeah, there was a fire in this neighborhood.
Wow.
His house did not burn down. He got close to it, but didn't. And
he predicted his death.
Yeah.
Right.
He knew when he was going to die. And my personal favorite was where a widow comes to him saying, there's like a jeweler who says, I owe him money, but my husband, I swear, paid for all this, but we can't find the receipt. Swedenborg does his magic, and he's like, oh yeah, your husband tells me the receipt's in this, desk drawer over here, bunk, 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 go find it. And sure enough, she finds the receipt, and all good. So the dude had some legit abilities that you just can't deny. And so then it's like, well, okay, what do you do with all his teachings? Do you say, well, he's just a crazy man? But what he offers isn't crazy. What he offers is a way of understanding life from a higher perspective than just this, material world that we live in. He's like, I'm going to give you something more to see that there's a purpose why you're here. God wants friends, right? It's lonely to being all by yourself for eternity.
It's lonely at the top.
That's right. You got it. So, he wants a relationship with us. And, well, how do we do that? Well, if you want a relationship with, your mother or father of this world, well, you do things with them. You share some common interests and stuff like that. And that's what God's saying. Well, what I really like? I like love. I really like that quite a bit. And this is how love works. And if you do that, you'll be with me. And let me tell you, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to, this is like Trump, it'll be amazing. Everybody tells me it's amazing. But of course, God's a gentleman. If you don't want to do this, if you don't want to be with me, you're welcome to go off wherever else, but you'll be outside of me, and it's not going to be as good for you. As simple as that. There's no punishment to it. Swedenborg says that God is the sun of the spiritual universe, right? Now, if I took a great big rock, a big mountain-sized boulder, and I threw it into our sun, well, what's going to happen?
It'll burn.
It's going to burn, right? It's dead. It's done. It's toast, right? Does the sun hate that rock? No. It just happens because that's what it did, right? There's no animosity towards it. It's just destroyed. It's the same thing with God. If we move away from Him, we get outside of His light and His heat, His warmth, all this stuff, and the opposite happens there too, right? You die if you get too close or you get too far, right? Mm-hmm. And so spiritual death happens to us when we get too far from God. It's not that the sunlight has stopped. It's not like the warmth ceased to exist.
It's that you're running from it.
Yeah. So all these rules and stuff that were given in the scriptures and religions about being nice and being loving, it's not because, God's going to zap you if you don't do it. The sun isn't doing that, right? It's just saying if you don't do these things, you will not be participating in the realm that is God's. And therefore you will not be happy because happiness is love. I mean, that's just what it is. But we confuse happiness with fun, right? It's really fun to go do certain things, but that doesn't mean you're happy. I don't know. it's fun to go on a roller coaster or scuba diving or whatever. But if you just do that and that's all you do, it gets old, right?
Yeah, some people think money buys happiness and all that. It's temporary stuff that
Yeah.
you think makes you happy. Or it might make you happy temporarily, but it's not deep happiness.
Right. Yeah, it might make you have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Those things are legitimate, and God wants us to have fun, but He also wants us to see that your real happiness comes from your wife, your kids, and the relationships and stuff like that. That's where your real satisfaction and joy in life is, not in the new cars and the bigger house and all that stuff. And again, there's not anything wrong with those things. It's just this inversion of priorities, right? You have love towards God and the neighbor and other people. That's top of the list. And you can have love to self, right? You can love yourself somewhat and go give yourself a cheesesteak.
There you go.
But it's like that. Don't make that the number one thing you strive for in life, all right? So
100%, I agree. Well, what do you have coming up? Anything new you want to share with the people?
Well, the big news in my life is I'll be moving at the end of the year.
Back home? Coming back to the Mecca?
No. I joke. I say that the church exiled me to Australia, and my time of exile is over. But no, look, I've been there for 12 years. It'll be almost 13 by the time we leave, and we're moving to Toronto, Canada, at the end of the year.
Whoa,
I know
what
it's
a big change. Why is that?
wrong time of year going from Australian summer to Canadian winter. It's probably stupid. But nobody ever accused me of being particularly smart, so it's all right,
Why Toronto?
Well, the couple reasons. One, I feel like I'm ready for some new challenges in life, ready for a change up.
Snow and cold, you ready?
Oh, well, that's the thing. I'm not really ready for that. I'm not ready for that. But my wife, her mom and siblings all live in Toronto. And so it's like, well, let's be near some family, get our kids near family, have that experience because they haven't had it for 12 years. And
Still closer to Philly.
It is. It's an 8-hour drive or an hour and a half flight versus an impossible drive or a 28 hours of travel to get there from Sydney.
Like a
so
4-month boat ride.
yeah, exactly. And then you get jet lagged and your body's a wreck. And so Toronto, look, it's going to be cold. I'm going to be a big fan of global warming over the next little bit. I'm just going to get a bucket of like a barrel of oil and just light it on fire in front of my house.
What about the church? Are you going to run a church there?
Yeah. I'll be the pastor of their church, and they've got a little school there, so I'll be dealing with that, and
Nice.
it'll be good. And hopefully, I'm trying to. We'll see if I can pull this off. I'm trying to get an assistant there as well, so I can still do some of the YouTube stuff and things that I've been doing online. So.
Oh, yeah, you got to give us some more YouTube.
I appreciate the love.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike, any last words?
I want to wish you best of luck, and thanks for hosting us here in the Bryn Athyn College and campus and cathedral. And it was very nice, to experience. And then I want to invite you to a few cheesesteaks.
Awesome.
After this.
Awesome.
What else do you do in Philly, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You pray and you eat.
Yeah. Pray you don't get shot, and then you eat.
Not at the Mecca.
Oh, man.
This was beautiful, man. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, look, I've really enjoyed it. It's been nice to actually do this in person this
Yeah.
time as opposed to Zoom.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, and we've had an adventure with the cathedral and getting kicked out and moving over here and all this
Relocating.
stuff. It's
No
all
problem.
all part of the journey, right?
That's it.
Absolutely. Let's do it next in Toronto, friend.
Toronto, I would love to.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
We can make that happen,
Got some
Perfect.
family out there.
Perfect.
can make it
We'll go
happen.
say what up to
and
Drake.
we'll find some more weird for you.
Yeah, I like it. Good food and weird conversation. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Peace and love.
One more thing. You can risk getting shot in Yonkers if you want to come down to New York.
Yeah.
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 Always
Do it.
welcome.
Come to Yonkers.
Okay. You don't dare me.
We'll do halal plates.
Don't call me chicken, man. I'll show up.
That's going to be a good one. That's home base.
No, peace, love, wisdom, baby.
All the best. God bless.